Human baby rescued a bear cub from mud. After cleaning it, he realized it's not a bear. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Every bit of your support helps us create even more amazing stories for you. The soft patter of rain had finally ceased, leaving behind a world washed clean yet treacherously muddy. Liam Parker stood on the weathered porch of his family's remote cabin, breathing in the fresh scent of pine and wet earth that permeated the air after the 3-day downpour. His 10-month-old son, Noah, sat contentedly on a thick quilt spread across the wooden planks, babbling happily as he stacked colorful blocks that kept toppling over. "I'll just be right over there gathering some firewood, little man," Liam said, pointing to a spot barely 30 yards away. "Mama's inside making lunch. You stay put, okay?" Noah responded with a delighted giggle, more interested in his blocks than his father's words. The cabin was set in a clearing at the edge of Whispering Pines Forest, miles from the nearest neighbor, a sanctuary Liam and his wife Alara had purchased just 6 months ago to escape their hectic city lives. They had fallen in love with the isolation, the tranquility, and the way the forest seemed alive with secrets. Liam hesitated before stepping off the porch. Leaving Noah alone, even for a few minutes, made him uneasy, but the porch was gated, and Alara would surely check on him. With one last glance at his son, Liam trudged toward the woodpile, his boots sinking into the sodden earth. Noah continued playing, unaware of the strange silence that had suddenly fallen over the forest. The birds had stopped singing, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then came a sound, faint at first, like a muffled whimper. Noah's tiny head perked up, his attention drawn away from his blocks to the corner of the porch where a small gap existed between the wooden slats and the cabin wall. The sound came again, a pitiful cry that seemed to vibrate with desperation. Noah abandoned his blocks and crawled toward the sound, his curiosity overpowering everything else. As he reached the corner, he peered through the gap and saw movement in the mud just beyond the porch, near the bushes that lined their property. Something was thrashing weakly in a deep puddle of mud, something small and dark and covered in what looked like fur. Noah sat back on his heels, watching with wide, wondering eyes as the creature struggled. Its movements were becoming slower, more labored, as if it was losing the fight against the clinging muck. Without fear or hesitation, Noah squeezed through the gap, a space too small for an adult, but just large enough for a determined baby. His diaper snagged on a nail, but he pulled free and found himself sitting in the wet grass at the side of the porch. The muddy creature was only a few feet away now. It looked like a tiny bear cub, its fur matted and dripping with thick brown sludge. Only its snout and eyes were partially visible above the mud. Those eyes, dark and glistening with what almost seemed like tears, locked onto Noah's, and something passed between them. A connection, an understanding that transcended species and age. Noah crawled forward, his blue onesie already staining with mud and grass. The bear cub made another sound, somewhere between a whimper and a chirp, and tried to move toward him, only to sink deeper into the muck. Inside the cabin, Alara hummed softly as she stirred a pot of homemade vegetable soup. The comforting aroma filled the kitchen, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread. She glanced out the window, catching sight of Liam stacking logs into a wheelbarrow. Her heart swelled with contentment at the simple life they had built together. "Noah must be getting hungry," she murmured to herself, wiping her hands on a dishcloth. "Time to check on my little explorer." Outside, Noah had reached the edge of the mud puddle. The cub-like creature had stopped struggling, perhaps conserving its energy or perhaps too exhausted to continue. Its eyes remained fixed on Noah, conveying a silent plea that the baby somehow understood. With a determined grunt, Noah plunged his small hands into the cold mud and grabbed at what he thought was the creature's fur. His fingers sank into the sludge, but he managed to grasp something solid beneath. The creature flinched at his touch but didn't pull away. Noah tugged, his face scrunching with effort. The mud released its hold with a reluctant squelch, and suddenly, the creature was free, at least partially. It scrambled with renewed energy, pulling itself forward until it collapsed on more solid ground beside Noah, both of them now thoroughly covered in mud. Up close, Noah could see the creature was small, no bigger than his stuffed teddy bear. It lay panting, its chest heaving with each breath. Through the coating of mud, Noah caught glimpses of dark fur, a rounded snout, and small ears. It looked like the bears he had seen in his picture books. But something was different. Something he couldn't quite understand with his limited experience of the world. The creature made a soft sound and nudged Noah's hand with its mud-caked snout. Noah patted its head gently, leaving tiny handprints in the mud. The creature's eyes closed briefly, as if savoring the touch. "Noah?" Ilara's voice called from the porch. "Noah, where are you?" The panic in her voice was immediate when she discovered the empty quilt. She rushed to the porch railing, her eyes scanning the yard frantically. "Liam! Liam!" she shouted, her voice cracking with fear. Liam dropped the logs he was carrying and ran toward the cabin, his heart pounding in his chest. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Noah's gone. He's not on the porch." Both parents began calling their son's name, their voices echoing through the clearing. From his spot beside the porch, Noah heard his parents, but was too engrossed with his new friend to respond. The creature, however, stiffened at the sound of adult voices. It tried to stand, but wobbled unsteadily, clearly still weak from its ordeal. Noah grabbed a corner of his own muddied onesie and, with surprising gentleness, began wiping at the creature's face. As the mud cleared from its features, Noah's expression changed from curiosity to confusion. The creature blinked up at him with eyes that were not the dark brown of a bear, but a startling amber with vertical pupils like a cat's. And as more mud fell away, Noah realized that what he had thought was a bear cub was actually something else entirely, something he had never seen before, not in his books or in his short life. Something that by all accounts shouldn't exist in the forests of North America or anywhere else in the known world. The creature shook itself, flinging droplets of mud in all directions, and Noah got his first clear glimpse of what he had rescued. His mouth formed a perfect O of astonishment, as the reality before him defied all expectation, launching this ordinary day into the realm of the extraordinary. The creature before Noah was covered in what appeared to be scales rather than fur, iridescent scales that shimmered with colors that seemed to shift in the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees. Where Noah had expected to see the rounded ears of a bear cub, there were strange, feathery tufts that twitched and swiveled toward sounds. Its face was somewhat cat-like, with a shorter snout than a bear's, and whiskers that seemed to glow with a faint bluish light. Most remarkable of all were the tiny, translucent wings, like those of a dragonfly but more substantial, that now unfurled from the creature's back, still partially stuck together with mud. Noah reached out a pudgy finger to touch the wings, but the creature gently nudged his hand away with its snout. It made a trilling sound, almost like a bird's call but with an underlying purr, and began to lick at its wings with a tongue that was forked at the tip. "Noah!" Liam's voice was closer now, tinged with the edge of panic that comes from a parent's worst fear. The creature's head jerked up, its amber eyes widening. It attempted to stand again, this time managing to rise on 4 unsteady legs. Noah noticed that its paws weren't paws at all, but delicate feet with 5 distinct digits, more like tiny hands than animal feet. The creature took a wobbly step backward, away from the approaching voices. "No go," Noah said, reaching for his new friend. It was one of the few phrases he knew, usually reserved for when his parents tried to put him to bed or leave him with a babysitter. The creature hesitated, torn between flight and the strange bond it already felt with the human child who had saved it. It made another trilling sound, softer this time, and backed another step away. Just then, Liam rounded the corner of the porch, his face ashen with fear. "Oh my God! Noah!" He rushed forward and scooped his son into his arms, heedless of the mud covering the boy. "Ilara, I found him. He's here." Ilara appeared moments later, her hands clutching the porch railing as relief washed over her features. She hurried down the steps and embraced her husband and son, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, baby, you scared us so much. How did you get out here?" Neither parent had noticed the creature, which had retreated beneath the shadow of a large fern. It watched the family reunion with curious eyes, its head tilted to one side as if trying to understand the emotional display before it. "He's covered in mud," Liam said, examining his son for injuries. "Are you hurt, buddy? What were you doing out here?" Noah squirmed in his father's arms, pointing insistently toward the fern. "Bah, bah," he exclaimed, his baby vocabulary insufficient to express what he'd discovered. "Bah?" Ilara asked, following her son's gaze. "What's bay, sweetheart?" "I think he's trying to say bear," Liam suggested, still not seeing what Noah was pointing at. "Maybe he saw a bear and that scared him? We should check the area." The sound of the word bear seemed to startle the creature. It backed further into the shadows, its wings fluttering nervously. "I don't see anything," Ilara said, scanning the bushes. "But we should get him inside and cleaned up. He's freezing, and God knows what's in that mud." Liam nodded, holding Noah more securely as he turned toward the cabin. Noah began to wail, reaching his arms out toward the fern, his tiny face crumpling in distress. "Bah! Bah!" he cried, tears mixing with the mud on his cheeks. "It's okay, Noah," Ilara soothed, stroking his hair. "You're safe now. There's no bear." Noah continued to cry as his parents carried him back to the porch. The creature watched them go, its amber eyes reflecting a strange intelligence. As the family disappeared into the cabin, it emerged from its hiding place and shook itself once more, dislodging the remaining mud from its scales and wings. The creature looked up at the cabin, then back to the forest behind it. After a moment's hesitation, it made its decision. Rather than fleeing into the safety of the woods, it scurried across the clearing and slipped beneath the porch, finding a dry spot among the support beams where it could rest and recover. Inside the cabin, Ilara had filled the kitchen sink with warm water and was gently washing the mud from Noah's face and hands, while Liam prepared a proper bath. "What on earth got into him?" Ilara murmured, more to herself than to her husband. "He's never gotten through the gate before." "Kids are escape artists," Liam replied, testing the bathwater temperature with his elbow. "One minute they're there, the next they've figured out how to open a child-proof lock. But we need to fix that gap in the porch railing. It must be how he got out." Noah had stopped crying, but he kept twisting in his mother's arms, looking toward the window as if expecting to see something, or someone, there. "He seems fixated on something," Ilara observed, following her son's gaze. "Do you think he really saw a bear?" Liam frowned, the possibility sending a chill down his spine. "I hope not. The realtor said there were black bears in these woods, but they usually avoid humans." "Bah," Noah said again, but more calmly this time. He patted his mother's cheek, leaving a small smudge of mud, then pointed to his own chest. Yes, you're our baby, Alara smiled, interpreting his gesture as he often did when playing the Where's Baby game. But Noah shook his head, frustration evident in his furrowed brow. He pointed to himself again, then to the window, then made a clumsy wiping motion with his hand. I don't understand, sweetie, Alara said, carrying him to the bathroom where Liam had prepared the bath. As his parents undressed him and lowered him into the warm water, Noah continued to glance toward the windows. The bath calmed him somewhat, and by the time he was dressed in clean clothes, he seemed to have forgotten about whatever had upset him, laughing as Liam tickled his belly. Crisis averted, Liam sighed, carrying Noah to his playpen in the living room. I'm going to check the porch and make sure it's secure. And I'll finish making lunch, Alara said, kissing Noah's forehead before returning to the kitchen. Left alone in his playpen, Noah stood holding onto the mesh side, staring at the window that faced the porch. Outside, the clouds had parted, allowing sunlight to stream across the clearing. A flicker of movement caught Noah's eye, a flash of iridescent scales as the creature darted from beneath the porch to a nearby bush. Noah babbled excitedly, bouncing on his chubby legs. On the porch, Liam knelt to examine the gap between the railing and the wall. This is definitely bigger than I thought, he called to Alara through the open window. I'll fix it this afternoon. As he ran his hand along the wood, he noticed something unusual. A small tuft of material caught on a splinter. He picked it off and held it up to the light. It wasn't fabric from Noah's clothes, nor was it fur as he first assumed. It seemed almost like a feather, but unlike any feather he'd ever seen. It shimmered with an unnatural blue-green iridescence, and when he rolled it between his fingers it felt both soft as down and firm as wire. That's weird, he muttered, pocketing the strange, feather-like object. He made a mental note to look it up in his bird guide later, though he doubted he'd find anything matching it. Lunch was a quiet affair, with Noah unusually subdued. He ate his mashed vegetables without complaint, but kept looking toward the windows and making occasional trilling sounds that his parents had never heard from him before. Do you think we should call Doctor? Marshall? Alara asked worriedly. He seems different. Liam shook his head. He's fine. Probably just processing his little adventure. Kids are resilient. After lunch, while Alara put Noah down for his nap, Liam ventured back outside to repair the porch railing. As he worked, hammering boards across the gap, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Twice he turned suddenly, expecting to catch someone or something, observing him from the trees, but each time he saw nothing unusual. He had just finished securing the last board when he heard a sound, a soft trilling similar to what Noah had been making at lunch. Liam froze, his hammer still raised, and slowly turned toward the source of the noise. There, at the edge of the clearing, partially concealed by a wild raspberry bush, was a creature unlike anything Liam had ever seen. It was small, about the size of a house cat, with a body covered in iridescent scales and tufted ears that swiveled toward him. Its amber eyes regarded him with unmistakable intelligence, and on its back were what appeared to be wings, delicate, translucent structures that caught the sunlight like stained glass. The hammer slipped from Liam's grasp and clattered on the wooden porch. At the sound, the creature startled and retreated a step, but it didn't flee. Instead, it made that trilling sound again and pawed at the ground with one of its strange, hand-like feet. "What the hell?" Liam whispered, his mind racing to categorize what he was seeing. Not a bear. Definitely not a bear. Not any known animal he could identify. It looked almost like something from a fantasy book. A dragon, perhaps, or some mythical hybrid beast. The creature took a cautious step forward, then another, its eyes never leaving Liam's face. It trilled again, the sound somehow conveying a question. From inside the cabin came the sound of a door closing, Alara leaving Noah's room after putting him down for his nap. The noise startled both Liam and the creature. In a flash of iridescent scales, the creature darted back into the underbrush and disappeared from view. Liam remained frozen in place, questioning his own senses. Had he really seen what he thought he'd seen? Or was his mind playing tricks on him? He bent to retrieve his hammer, noticing that his hands were trembling slightly. The screen door opened, and Alara stepped onto the porch. "All fixed?" she asked, nodding toward the newly secured railing. "Yeah," Liam managed, his voice sounding strange even to his own ears. "All fixed." Alara tilted her head, studying his face. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Liam hesitated. How could he explain what he'd just witnessed without sounding completely insane? I think I saw something in the bushes. Probably nothing. Maybe a fox or something." "A fox?" Alara's brow furrowed with concern. "Are they dangerous?" No, they usually avoid people." Liam put his arm around his wife's shoulders, guiding her back toward the door. "It's gone now anyway." As they stepped inside, Liam cast one last glance toward the raspberry bush. There was no sign of the strange creature, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it was still there, watching and waiting. Inside the cabin, in his darkened room, Noah wasn't sleeping. He lay in his crib, wide awake, listening to sounds that his parents couldn't hear. The soft padding of tiny feet beneath the porch, the gentle rustle of wings, and a melodic trilling that seemed to carry words just beyond his comprehension. He smiled in the darkness, knowing that his new friend hadn't left after all. Outside, as the afternoon sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, something stirred in the forest surrounding the Parker family's cabin. From the deepest shadows between ancient trees, eyes opened. Dozens of pairs of eyes in various colors and sizes, all with the same vertical pupils. Soft trills and chirps passed between hidden watchers as news spread through the woods. One of their young had been rescued by a human child. The lost hatchling had been found, and now the forest held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Night fell over the cabin with unusual swiftness, as if the forest itself had pulled a dark blanket across the sky. Liam sat at the kitchen table, turning the strange iridescent feather scale between his fingers, watching how it caught the light from the overhead lamp. He had searched through every field guide in their small collection, birds of North America, regional wildlife, even a book on insects, and found nothing remotely similar to what he had seen that afternoon. "Still obsessing over that thing?" Alara asked, sliding a mug of tea across the table to him. She had humored his detailed description of the creature, but hadn't fully believed him. In her mind, the stress of Noah's disappearance had caused Liam to misinterpret something ordinary, perhaps an injured bird or an unfamiliar rodent. "It doesn't make sense," Liam muttered, placing the feather scale on the table between them. "Look at this. Have you ever seen anything like it?" Alara picked up the delicate object, examining it more closely than she had before. In the kitchen's bright light, the iridescence was even more pronounced, blues and greens shifting to purples and golds as she rotated it. "It is strange," she admitted. "Maybe it's not natural. Could be something synthetic that blew in from somewhere." "In these woods? Miles from anywhere?" Liam shook his head. "And that doesn't explain the creature I saw. It was real, Alara, as real as you and me." Ilara placed the feather scale back on the table and reached for her husband's hand. I believe you saw something. I'm just not convinced it was some kind of, what did you call it, mini dragon? I didn't call it that, Liam protested, though the term wasn't far from what he'd been thinking. I just said it had scales and wings, and wasn't like any animal I've ever seen. Their conversation was interrupted by a sound from the baby monitor, a soft babbling that indicated Noah was awake. Ilara rose to check on him, but Liam laid a hand on her arm. I'll go, he said, already standing. Finish your tea. Liam made his way down the short hallway to Noah's room, guided by the nightlight's soft glow. He pushed the door open gently, expecting to find his son standing in his crib as he often did when he woke from a nap. Instead, Noah was still lying down, but he wasn't alone. Perched on the railing of the crib, its iridescent scales glimmering in the dim light, was the creature from the clearing. It was grooming its wings with meticulous care, running its strange hand-like paws over the translucent membranes. At Liam's entrance, it looked up, those amber eyes reflecting the nightlight with an inner glow of their own. Liam froze in the doorway, his heart hammering against his ribs. The creature made no move to flee. If anything, it seemed to straighten up, regarding him with what could only be described as dignity. Noah gurgled happily, reaching a hand toward his visitor clearly unafraid. Ilara, Liam called, his voice barely above a whisper. Could you come here, please? Something in his tone must have conveyed the urgency, because he heard the immediate scrape of her chair against the floor, followed by her quick footsteps down the hall. What is it? Is Noah okay? She asked, attempting to move past him into the room. Liam didn't answer. He couldn't. He simply stepped aside so she could see for herself. Ilara's sharp intake of breath was followed by absolute silence. The creature tilted its head, regarding the two humans with curiosity rather than fear. It made a soft, trilling sound, then deliberately turned its attention back to Noah, extending one of its paw hands toward the baby in what seemed like a greeting. Noah laughed and reached back, his tiny fingers brushing against the creature's scales. The touch appeared to please the creature, which made a purring sound deep in its throat. "Oh my God," Ilara whispered, clutching Liam's arm so tightly it hurt. "What is that thing? What is it doing with Noah?" "I told you," Liam murmured. "This is what I saw earlier. Should we try to get it away from him?" Ilara's voice trembled with fear and maternal protectiveness. Liam studied the scene before them, his son and the strange creature, interacting with what could only be described as mutual affection. "I don't think it's hurting him. It seems almost friendly." As if to confirm his assessment, the creature began to groom Noah's hair with gentle strokes of its paw hand, much as it had been grooming its own wings moments before. Noah giggled at the sensation, completely at ease with his unusual visitor. Slowly, carefully, Liam took a step into the room. The creature tensed but didn't flee. Another step. Ilara followed, her hand never leaving her husband's arm. When they were halfway to the crib, the creature rose to its full height, barely a foot tall, and spread its wings in what might have been a defensive posture. Liam stopped, raising his empty hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly, not sure if the creature could understand but hoping his tone would convey his peaceful intentions. "We won't hurt you." The creature's wings relaxed slightly, but it remained alert, its vertical pupils widening in the dim light. It made a series of sounds, trills and chirps that almost seemed to form a pattern, like speech. "I think it's trying to communicate," Ilara whispered, her initial fear giving way to wonder. Noah chose that moment to sit up in his crib, babbling excitedly. He pointed to the creature, then to himself, then made the wiping motion he had attempted earlier that day. "Bah," he said firmly, looking at his parents with earnest eyes. "Bah." The creature trilled in response, a sound that seemed almost like agreement. And suddenly, Liam understood. "He's not saying bear or baby," he said, the realization dawning with crystal clarity. "He's trying to tell us that he helped this creature, that he found it in the mud and cleaned it off." Alara's eyes widened. The mud on his clothes, he wasn't just playing in it, he was rescuing his new friend, Liam finished for her. The creature chirped loudly, bouncing slightly on its hind legs, as if pleased by their understanding. It spread its wings again, but the gesture seemed celebratory rather than threatening. Noah clapped his hands in delight, then yawned widely, the excitement of the moment competing with his still present need for sleep. The creature noticed the yawn and immediately settled back down, folding its wings neatly against its back. It made a soothing sound, almost like a lullaby, and gently patted Noah's arm as if encouraging him to lie down again. "It's taking care of him," Alara said, her voice filled with amazement. As Noah obediently settled back onto his mattress, the creature hopped from the crib railing to the windowsill. It turned to look at the three humans one last time, made a soft trilling sound that somehow conveyed both farewell and promise, then slipped through the partially open window and disappeared into the night. Liam and Alara approached the crib cautiously. Noah was already drifting back to sleep, a contented smile on his face. Alara adjusted his blanket, then joined Liam at the window. Outside, there was no sign of the creature, only the dark silhouettes of trees against the star-filled sky. "Hey, what just happened?" Alara whispered, leaning against her husband. "What was that thing?" Liam shook his head, at a loss for words. "I don't know, but I don't think it's dangerous, at least not to Noah." They stood at the window for a long time, scanning the darkness for any sign of their unusual visitor. Eventually, satisfied that Noah was sleeping peacefully, they retreated to the kitchen, where Liam's field guide still lay open on the table, their pages offering no answers to the questions that now filled the couple's minds. "We should call someone," Alara said, pacing the small kitchen. "The wildlife service, maybe, or a local ranger." "And tell them what?" Liam countered. "That we've got a tiny dragon visiting our baby? They'd think we're crazy." "Then what do we do? Just live with this? Pretend it didn't happen?" Liam picked up the iridescent feather scale again, turning it in the light. "I don't think we can ignore this, even if we wanted to. That creature found its way into our house once. It'll probably come back." Alara's face paled. "You think there are more of them out there, in the forest?" Before Liam could answer, a sound from outside caught their attention. A melodic trilling, much like the sounds their visitor had made, but louder and coming from multiple directions at once. They rushed to the front window and pulled back the curtain. What they saw made them both gasp. The clearing around their cabin was filled with softly glowing lights, dozens of them hovering at various heights among the trees. As their eyes adjusted, they realized the lights were coming from the creatures themselves, their scales and wings catching the moonlight and somehow amplifying it, creating an otherworldly luminescence that transformed the ordinary forest into something magical. "There's so many of them," Alara breathed, her earlier fear replaced by awe. The creatures were moving in what appeared to be a synchronized pattern, circling the cabin in an ever-tightening spiral. Their trills and chirps had taken on a rhythmic quality, almost like a chant or song. In the center of the clearing stood a larger creature, similar in appearance to the one that had visited Noah, but nearly twice its size. Its wings were fully extended, spanning at least 3 feet from tip to tip, and the scales along its spine glowed with a particularly intense blue-white light. This leader, for that was clearly what it was, raised its head toward the cabin and emitted a single, piercing call that cut through the night like a silver knife. The other creatures immediately fell silent, their lights dimming slightly as if in deference. "What do they want?" Ilara whispered, pressing closer to Liam. As if in answer to her question, the leader began to move toward the cabin, its gait graceful despite the unusual structure of its limbs. It stopped at the foot of the porch steps, looking up at the window where Liam and Ilara stood watching. "I think," Liam said slowly, "they want to thank us. Or rather, thank Noah for saving one of their young." The leader's head tilted, its amber eyes seeming to look directly into Liam's, despite the distance and the glass between them. It raised one of its paw hands in what could only be described as a gesture of greeting, then placed it over its chest in what Liam interpreted as gratitude or respect. "Should we go out there?" Ilara asked, torn between curiosity and caution. Liam considered for a moment, then nodded. "I think we should. They could have hurt us already if that was their intention. Noah trusted them. Maybe we should too." Hand in hand, they moved to the front door. Liam paused with his hand on the knob, taking a deep breath before pulling the door open. The cool night air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of pine and something else. A sweet, spicy aroma unlike anything they had smelled before. They stepped onto the porch, acutely aware of the dozens of glowing creatures now watching them intently. The leader remained at the foot of the steps, its posture alert but not threatening. "Hello," Liam said, feeling slightly ridiculous addressing what appeared to be a mythical creature. We're glad we could help." The leader made a series of complex sounds, its wings fluttering slightly as if to emphasize certain points. Though the words, if they were words, were incomprehensible to the humans, the intent seemed clear, acknowledgement and thanks. Then, to the astonishment of both Liam and Ilara, the leader began to glow more intensely. The light concentrated in its chest, pulsing like a heartbeat, until it coalesced into a small, brilliantly shining object. With a motion almost too quick to follow, the leader plucked this light object from its own chest and held it out toward the humans. "I think it's offering us a gift," Ilara whispered. Liam hesitated, then slowly descended the porch steps. The other creatures moved back slightly, creating a clear path between him and their leader. When he reached the bottom step, he was close enough to see that the object was a perfect sphere, about the size of a marble, composed of what appeared to be the same iridescent material as the feather scale he had found, but condensed and crystallized. He extended his hand, palm up, and the leader gently placed the sphere in the center of his palm. The moment it touched his skin, a wave of warmth spread up his arm and throughout his body, accompanied by a series of images that flashed through his mind too quickly to fully comprehend. Ancient forests, underground caverns filled with similar creatures, a vast migration across seas and continents, and finally, strangely, a vision of Noah as a grown man, standing in a meadow surrounded by the glowing beings. The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Liam breathless. The sphere in his palm had gone dark but remained warm to the touch. "What happened?" Ilara called from the porch, concerned by his sudden stillness. "I'm not sure," Liam replied, carefully closing his fingers around the gift. "But I think we just became part of something important." The leader made one final trilling sound, then backed away, rejoining its kind. As one, the creatures began to glow more intensely, their lights blending together until the clearing was as bright as day. Then, in a coordinated movement that defied physics as Liam understood it, they rose into the air. Not like birds taking flight, but like leaves caught in an updraft, spiraling upward in a column of light and color. Higher and higher they rose, their lights gradually diminishing with distance until they were indistinguishable from the stars above. And then they were gone, leaving the forest in darkness once more. Liam returned to the porch, the sphere still clutched in his hand. Alara's face was a study in amazement and confusion, mirroring his own feelings. "What just happened?" she asked for the second time that night, but with an entirely different inflection. Liam opened his hand, revealing the now dormant sphere. "I think," he said carefully, "we just met the neighbors." Inside the cabin, Noah slept peacefully, unaware that his simple act of kindness had initiated contact between two species that had never meant to meet. In his dreams, he flew on shimmering wings above endless forests, surrounded by creatures that sang to him in voices like silver bells, guiding him toward a destiny neither he nor his parents could yet comprehend. Morning arrived with a brilliance that seemed almost deliberate. Sunlight streaming through the windows as if eager to illuminate the mysteries of the previous night. Liam had slept fitfully, the crystalline sphere resting on the nightstand beside him, occasionally pulsing with a soft light that painted strange shadows on the walls. Ilara had watched it warily before, finally drifting into an uneasy sleep, her hand clutching Liam's as if afraid he might disappear. They were awakened not by their alarm clock or even by Noah's usual morning babbling, but by a sound that seemed to resonate through the very structure of the cabin, a deep harmonic humming that made the windows vibrate and the floorboards tremble. "What is that?" Ilara gasped, sitting up so quickly she nearly collided with Liam, who was already reaching for the sphere. It was glowing again, brighter than before, the iridescent colors swirling within its crystalline structure like a miniature galaxy. As Liam's fingers closed around it, the humming intensified, and images began to flood his mind once more. But slower this time, more deliberate, as if whoever or whatever was sending them wanted him to understand. He saw a vast underground network of caverns, illuminated by the same bioluminescent light as the creatures. In these caverns, hundreds, no, thousands, of the beings lived in a complex society, building structures from a material that seemed part crystal, part living plant. He saw them caring for their young, teaching them to fly in great aerial ballets, crafting objects of incredible beauty from materials Liam couldn't identify. Then the vision shifted, showing him something darker. Humans in protective suits entering the caverns, capturing several of the creatures, transporting them in sterile containers to laboratories where they were subjected to tests and examinations. The emotional impact of these images was overwhelming. The terror of the captured creatures, the grief of those left behind, the desperate decision to flee their ancestral home and seek refuge in the most remote forests they could find. The final image was of the creature Noah had rescued, a curious youngster who had wandered too far from the new settlement, becoming trapped in the mud and nearly discovered by the very beings its kind had fled from, only to be saved by the most innocent of those beings, a human child who acted out of pure compassion. The vision faded, leaving Liam gasping for breath, the sphere hot in his palm but no longer glowing. "Liam? What's happening? Talk to me." Ilara's voice seemed to come from far away, though she was right beside him, shaking his shoulder. "They're refugees," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. "They're hiding from us, from humans who discovered them and tried to capture them for study." "What? How do you know that?" Ilara's eyes darted from his face to the sphere and back. "The sphere, it showed me. It's some kind of communication device, I think." Liam struggled to find words that could encapsulate what he had experienced. They're intelligent, Alara. Not just animal intelligent, but people intelligent. They have a society, technology, culture, and they're terrified of being discovered again. Alara opened her mouth to respond, but at that moment, Noah's voice came through the baby monitor. Not his usual morning sounds, but actual words, clear and distinct. Come, see, friend. Both parents froze, staring at the monitor in shock. Noah was advanced for his age, already saying a handful of simple words, but never a complete sentence, and never with such clarity. Did he just, Alara began. Come, see, friend, Noah repeated, the words just as clear as before. They scrambled out of bed and hurried down the hall to Noah's room, Liam still clutching the sphere. When they pushed open the door, they found Noah standing in his crib, hands gripping the railing, eyes bright with excitement. But what made them both stop short was that Noah's eyes, which had been a clear, ordinary blue since birth, now shimmered with hints of gold, and his pupils, previously round, had taken on a slightly vertical appearance. Noah, Alara breathed, rushing to the crib and lifting her son into her arms. Baby, what happened to your eyes? Noah giggled and patted his mother's cheek. Friend, come, he said, his vocabulary and articulation suddenly far beyond what it had been just the day before. Friend, show. Show what, Noah? Liam asked, approaching cautiously, the sphere still warm in his hand. Show world, Noah replied, pointing to his own eyes, then to the window. Show everything. Alara clutched Noah tighter, a mother's protective instinct warring with the undeniable wonder of the situation. What's happening to him, Liam? She whispered, her voice trembling. Before Liam could answer, the sphere in his hand pulsed with renewed intensity, its glow casting prismatic patterns across the nursery walls. Noah reached for it with surprising coordination, his tiny fingers opening and closing eagerly. Want, he said clearly. Please. Liam hesitated, looking to Alara for guidance. Her face was pale with worry, but she gave a slight nod. Whatever was happening, it was already well beyond their control. Be careful, buddy, Liam said, placing the sphere gently in Noah's outstretched palm. The moment the crystalline object touched Noah's skin, the room seemed to shift and waver, as if reality itself had become fluid. The walls of the nursery appeared to dissolve, replaced by a panoramic view of the forest surrounding their cabin, but not as Liam and Alara knew it. This forest was alive with energy, every tree surrounded by a faint aura of pulsing light, every plant and creature connected by threads of luminous energy that formed an intricate web of life. Oh my God, Alara gasped, her grip on Noah tightening. What are we seeing? I think, Liam said slowly, reaching out to touch one of the glowing threads only to have his hand pass through it. We're seeing how they see the world. Noah giggled, utterly delighted by the display. Friend world, he confirmed, his strange new eyes reflecting the kaleidoscope of colors surrounding them. The vision expanded, zooming out to show them the entire forest from above, then pushing deeper to reveal the network of caverns beneath the earth where the creatures had established their new home. Dozens of the beings moved through crystalline chambers, their wings and scales creating a symphony of light. In the largest chamber, a group of the creatures surrounded a central pool of what appeared to be liquid light, dipping their wingtips into it and communicating through elaborate sequences of color changes and trills. They're worried, Noah said, his voice oddly mature for his tiny form. Scared humans find them. How do you know that? Alara asked, looking down at her son with a mixture of awe and fear. Noah tapped his temple. Friend tell, friend hear, he tapped his chest next, friend heart. The implication was as clear as it was impossible. Noah was somehow connected to these beings, able to understand their thoughts and feelings in a way his parents could not. The vision shifted again, showing a group of humans in hazmat suits moving through a different set of caverns, these ones larger and more elaborate than the ones nearby. They carried equipment: cages, tranquilizer guns, and scientific instruments. One of the humans, a tall woman with severe features, directed the others with sharp gestures, pointing to a map that glowed with markers indicating where the creatures might be found. "Bad humans," Noah said, his face scrunching into a frown. "Hurt friends." "Who are they?" Liam asked, studying the scene intently. "Where is this happening?" Before Noah could respond, the vision was interrupted by a sharp knock at the front door. The illusory images shattered like glass, dissolving into motes of light that quickly faded, leaving them in the ordinary nursery once more. The sphere in Noah's hand went dark, though it still pulsed with a faint warmth. Ilara and Liam exchanged alarmed glances. They weren't expecting visitors, and their cabin was miles from the nearest neighbor. "Take Noah to our room," Liam whispered urgently. "Stay there until I see who it is." Ilara nodded, clutching Noah to her chest as she hurried down the hall. Noah surprisingly didn't protest, sensing the tension in his parents' movements. Liam approached the front door cautiously, peering through the peephole. Outside stood a man and a woman, both dressed in what appeared to be hiking gear: sturdy boots, weatherproof jackets, and backpacks. They looked harmless enough, but after what he had just witnessed, Liam was taking no chances. "Hello," he called through the door. "Can I help you?" "Sorry to bother you," the woman called back, her voice pleasant and slightly apologetic. "We're with the Forest Service conducting a wildlife survey in the area. We were hoping to ask you a few questions about any unusual animal sightings you might have had recently." Liam's blood ran cold. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. He took a deep breath, composing himself before opening the door just wide enough to see the visitors properly, but not enough to invite them in. "Wildlife survey?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. "We haven't seen much besides the usual deer and squirrels." The woman smiled, reaching into her pocket to produce an identification card bearing the Forest Service logo. "Dr. Rebecca Harlow," she introduced herself. "And this is my colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen. We're particularly interested in reports of any, shall we say, atypical species." Liam studied their credentials carefully. They appeared legitimate, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Dr. Harlow looked nothing like the severe woman from the vision, but her eyes held a keenness that made him uncomfortable. "As I said, nothing unusual," Liam insisted. "Just moved in a few months ago, so we're still getting to know the local wildlife ourselves." Dr. Chen, who had been scanning the tree line with poorly concealed interest, turned his attention back to the conversation. "No strange lights in the forest? No unexplained sounds?" Alarm bells rang in Liam's mind. These questions were too specific, too targeted. "Nope," he replied, forcing a casual shrug. "Pretty quiet out here. That's why we chose it." Dr. Harlow's smile never wavered, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, if you do notice anything, here's our card." She handed him a business card with the Forest Service logo and a phone number. "We'd appreciate a call. Some of the wildlife in these woods is quite rare and potentially endangered. We're eager to document and protect it." "Will do," Liam assured them, already beginning to close the door. "Good luck with your survey." As he shut the door, he caught a glimpse of Dr. Chen speaking quietly into what appeared to be a handheld radio, not standard equipment for wildlife researchers in Liam's limited experience. He watched through the window as the two researchers retreated down the path toward a green SUV parked at the edge of the clearing. Only when they had driven away did he return to the bedroom where Ilara waited with Noah. "Who was it?" she asked immediately. "Two people claiming to be from the Forest Service," Liam replied, sitting heavily on the edge of the bed. "Asking about unusual wildlife sightings." Ilara's arms tightened around Noah. "You don't think that they're looking for our new friends? I'd bet on it." Liam ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. "The question is, are they actually from the government or some private research group? And how did they find this place?" "Not friends," Noah said suddenly, his strange new eyes wide with concern. "Bad people. Find friends." He held up the sphere, which had begun to pulse with a faint red glow. "Friends say danger." Liam took the sphere from Noah's hands, half expecting another vision, but the object remained merely warm, its red glow steady. "I think we need to warn them," he said finally. "If these researchers are the same ones from before, the ones who captured and hurt them." "But how?" Ilara asked, her practical nature asserting itself despite the surreal circumstances. "We can't exactly call them on the phone." Noah wiggled in her arms, pointing toward the window. "Go, Forrest. Find friends. Tell—" "We can't take you into the forest looking for mythical creatures while government agents might be watching," Ilara said firmly. "It's too dangerous." "Friend, come here," Noah replied, patting his chest. "Friend, show way." As if in response to his words, the sphere in Liam's hand flared brightly, then projected a beam of light toward the window. The beam widened, forming what appeared to be a map, a detailed topographical representation of the surrounding forest, with a pulsing blue dot marking their cabin and a red path leading from it into the woods. "I think they're trying to guide us to them," Liam said, studying the map with growing amazement. "They want us to find them before the researchers do." "This is insane," Ilara muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. After everything they had seen in the past 24 hours, the boundaries of what she considered possible had been drastically recalibrated. "You really think we should go?" "I think we don't have much choice," Liam replied grimly. "If those weren't real Forest Service employees, and I'm not convinced they were, they might come back with reinforcements. We need to at least warn our neighbors." Noah clapped his hands decidedly. "Help friends," he insisted. Ilara sighed, the fight going out of her. "Fine, but we go prepared. Backpacks, food, water, first aid kit, and we stay together, no matter what." They worked quickly, gathering supplies while Noah sat on the living room floor, playing with the sphere. It had stopped projecting the map but continued to pulse with a gentle light that seemed to respond to Noah's touch. Occasionally, he would giggle or nod as if listening to a conversation only he could hear. "I'm still not comfortable with whatever is happening to him," Ilara whispered as she packed energy bars and water bottles into a backpack. "His eyes, the way he's suddenly talking in full sentences. It's not natural." "None of this is natural," Liam pointed out, checking the batteries in their flashlights. "But Noah doesn't seem afraid or in pain. If anything, he's happier than I've ever seen him." "But what if it's permanent? What if whatever connection he's formed with these creatures has changed him forever?" Liam had no answer for that. The possibility had been haunting him as well, but they had more immediate concerns. "One problem at a time," he finally said. "Right now, we need to focus on finding these beings and warning them." By mid-morning, they were ready. Liam wore a backpack containing most of their supplies, while Ilara carried Noah in a sturdy baby carrier on her chest. Noah insisted on holding the sphere, which had begun to glow more intensely as they prepared to leave, as if responding to their intentions. The moment anything feels wrong, we turn back, Ilara insisted as they stood at the edge of the forest, the path ahead disappearing into the dense undergrowth. Promise me, Liam. I promise, he agreed, though both knew it might not be a promise he could keep. They stepped into the forest, and immediately Noah raised the sphere, which projected the map once more, showing the red path they were to follow. It led deeper into the woods, away from any established trails, toward an area marked by strange, swirling symbols that Liam couldn't decipher. The forest seemed different today, more vibrant somehow, as if Noah's altered perception had begun to affect their own. Colors appeared more saturated, sounds more distinct. The twitter of birds overhead formed complex patterns that almost seemed like speech if you listened closely enough. The rustle of leaves in the breeze carried undertones of whispers, just below the threshold of comprehension. "Do you feel that?" Ilara asked softly as they pushed deeper into the trees. "It's like the forest is aware of us." "Friend Forest," Noah said simply, stroking the sphere with his tiny fingers, all connected. They had been walking for nearly an hour when Noah suddenly stiffened in his carrier. "Stop," he commanded, his voice unnaturally serious for a child his age. "Listen." Liam and Ilara froze, straining their ears. At first, they heard nothing unusual, just the normal sounds of the forest. Then, faintly, came the sound of voices and heavy footsteps, approaching from somewhere to their right. "Hide," Noah whispered urgently. They ducked behind a large fallen tree, Liam helping Ilara and Noah down into the concealing ferns. No sooner had they hidden than a group of people emerged into view about 50 yards away. 4 adults wearing the same type of hiking gear as the visitors from earlier, but now carrying more obvious equipment. Metal detectors, what looked like specialized scanning devices, and most alarmingly, tranquilizer rifles. "The signal is strongest in this sector," one of them said, consulting a handheld device that emitted a faint beeping sound. "The radiation signature is unmistakable." "Radiation signature?" another replied, sounding skeptical. "We're sure it's not just mineral deposits?" "Minerals don't move in coordinated patterns," the first person, a woman Liam recognized as Dr. Harlow, snapped impatiently. "And they don't emit the same energy signatures we recorded in the Colorado site. Trust me, they're here." Noah whimpered softly, clutching the sphere to his chest. It had stopped glowing, as if it knew they needed to remain hidden. "What about the family at the cabin?" a third researcher asked. "You think they've had contact?" "Hard to say," Dr. Harlow replied. The father was obviously lying about not seeing anything unusual. "We'll have to circle back and question them more thoroughly once we've secured some specimens." Liam felt a cold anger building in his chest. These people spoke of the forest creatures as if they were nothing more than laboratory animals, ignoring or unaware of their obvious intelligence and social complexity. The group moved on, their voices fading as they continued their search. Liam waited until he could no longer hear them before helping Ilara and Noah back to their feet. "We need to hurry," he said grimly. "They're definitely hunting our friends, and they have some kind of technology that can detect them." "But how will we find them first?" Ilara asked, adjusting Noah in his carrier. "We don't have tracking devices." Noah held up the sphere, which had begun to glow again, this time with a more urgent pulsing pattern. "Friend show, different way, secret way." The map projected from the sphere had changed. The red path now led away from their previous direction, curving sharply to avoid the area where the researchers were searching. It ended at what appeared to be a sheer rock face about a mile away. "Is that where they live?" Liam asked, studying the new route. "In caves?" "Yes, no," Noah replied cryptically. Hide place, safe place. They set off again, moving as quietly as possible, constantly alert for any sign of the researchers. The new path was more difficult, taking them through dense underbrush and across a shallow stream. Twice they had to stop and hide as drones buzzed overhead, sleek, modern machines that seemed out of place in the primeval forest. Those aren't standard Forest Service equipment, Liam muttered as they watched one drone disappear over the treetops. I'm starting to think these people aren't government at all. Then who are they? Ilara asked, wiping sweat from her brow. The day had grown hot, and the strain of carrying Noah was beginning to tell. I don't know, but they're well-funded and determined. Corporate research, maybe? Biotech or pharmaceutical? Noah tugged at his father's sleeve. Hurry, he insisted. Bad people coming. They picked up their pace, pushing through the increasingly rough terrain. After another 30 minutes of hard hiking, they reached the rock face indicated on the map. It rose about 30 feet high, seemingly solid and impenetrable, covered in moss and lichen. Now what? Ilara asked, looking around for an entrance that wasn't apparent. Noah pointed to a specific section of the rock face. There, he said confidently. Touch rock. Liam approached the spot, running his hands over the moss-covered stone. It felt ordinary enough, cool and slightly damp. I don't see a way in, he admitted. Sphere, Noah insisted, holding out the crystalline object. Use sphere. Understanding dawned on Liam. He took the sphere from Noah and pressed it against the rock where his son had indicated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sphere began to vibrate, emitting a high-pitched tone just at the edge of human hearing. The vibration intensified, and to Liam's amazement, a section of the rock face, about the size of a standard door, simply faded away, revealing a dark passage beyond. How is that possible? Ilara breathed, taking an involuntary step back. The rock just disappeared. Not disappeared, Noah corrected, his strange eyes gleaming with excitement. Changed. Light bend. Height door. Some kind of advanced camouflage, Liam theorized, peering into the passage. Or maybe a technology that alters our perception. Either way, it's incredible. Welcome, came a voice from the darkness. A voice that was both familiar and utterly alien, composed of trills and chirps, but somehow forming recognizable words. You come help. Good humans. A figure emerged from the shadows, the same creature that had visited Noah's room, its scales glowing softly, illuminating the passage. It approached them with dignified grace, then made a gesture that unmistakably invited them to follow. Friend, Noah said happily, reaching toward the creature. Maya, friend. Maya, Ilara repeated, looking at her son questioningly. Her name, Noah explained simply. Maya. The creature, Maya, trilled in what sounded like agreement, then turned and moved deeper into the passage. With one last glance at the forest behind them, Liam and Ilara stepped through the hidden doorway, Noah secure between them. As they crossed the threshold, the opening shimmered and closed behind them, sealing them into a world unlike anything they could have imagined. The passage sloped gently downward, lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The air was surprisingly fresh, with none of the mustiness one might expect in an underground tunnel. As they descended, the passage widened into a larger tunnel, its walls carved with intricate symbols that pulsed with subtle light when they passed. What is this place? Ilara whispered, her voice filled with wonder despite her lingering apprehension. Old place, Noah answered, his eyes wide as he absorbed everything around them. Friend home, long time. After walking for what seemed like 10 minutes, they emerged into a vast cavern that took their breath away. The ceiling soared at least 100 feet above them, studded with crystals that emitted a soft, sunlight-quality illumination. The floor was a mosaic of polished stone and living plants, arranged in patterns too perfect to be natural. Streams of clear water flowed in channels throughout the space, converging in a central pool that glowed with an inner light. But most astonishing of all were the inhabitants. Dozens of creatures like Maya flitted through the air or moved about on the ground, their scales creating a constantly shifting tapestry of light and color. Some were small, clearly younglings, while others were larger, with more elaborate wing patterns and crests of feathery plumes along their spines. They moved with purpose, tending to crystal structures that appeared to be some form of technology, or caring for plants unlike any Liam or Alara had ever seen. Plants that seemed to respond to touch with movements too deliberate to be mere tropism. "It's a city," Liam realized, his voice hushed with awe. "An entire hidden civilization." Maya led them toward the central pool, where a larger creature waited, the same leader they had seen in their yard the previous night. It stood on a platform of crystal that hovered slightly above the water's surface, wings extended in what seemed to be a formal posture. "Greetings, human friends," the leader said, its voice deeper and more resonant than Maya's, though composed of the same trilling sounds. "I am Zephyr, elder of the Lumina. You have shown great courage coming here." "You speak English," Alara said, unable to hide her astonishment. Zephyr made a gesture that might have been the equivalent of a smile. "We learn quickly when we must. Your language is inefficient but workable. The small one helps us understand." Noah giggled. "I help," he confirmed proudly. "What exactly are you?" Liam asked, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his manners. "I've never seen or heard of anything like you." "We are Lumina," Zephyr replied simply. "We have walked this world longer than your kind, though we have remained hidden for most of that time. We are not from here originally. Our ancestors came from the stars many cycles of your sun ago." Alara's jaw dropped. "You're extraterrestrial?" If that word means not of this world, then yes. But this world has been our home for many generations. We adapted, evolved, lived in harmony with its rhythms and energies. Zephyr's voice took on a sadder tone, "until your kind discovered us." "The researchers," Liam guessed. "The ones in the forest now." "Yes, they found one of our settlements 2 cycles of seasons ago in the place you call Colorado. They captured many of our kind, subjected them to examinations." The distaste in Zephyr's voice was evident. "Few survived. We fled, seeking a new home far from human habitation. We thought we had found it here." "But they tracked you somehow," Alara said, the pieces falling into place. "Our energy signature," Zephyr confirmed. "We produce it naturally, as your bodies produce heat. Usually, we can mask it, but when many of us gather in one place, it becomes detectable," Liam finished. "And now they're closing in." Zephyr nodded gravely. "We have few options left. We cannot fight. Violence is not our way, and we have no weapons. We cannot flee. There are young ones who cannot travel far, and nowhere on this continent seems safe anymore." "What about the sphere?" Liam asked, nodding toward the crystalline object Noah still clutched. "It seems quite powerful." "The Heartstone," Zephyr said, gesturing toward the sphere. "It is one of our most precious artifacts, a repository of knowledge and a tool for connecting with the energy that flows through all living things. But it is not a weapon." "Then why give it to us?" Alara asked. "Because your child," Zephyr said, focusing on Noah with an intense gaze, "is special. He has an openness of spirit, a purity of intention that is rare among your kind. When he saved Maya, he did so without fear or prejudice. He saw only another being in need. The Heartstone responded to that quality in him. Noah beamed under the praise, holding up the Heartstone proudly. "Help friends," he declared. "Yes, little one," Zephyr agreed. "That is why we have brought you here. We need your help. All of you." The leader turned its attention back to Liam and Alara. "The humans who hunt us are close. By nightfall, they will likely find this place, despite our safeguards. We cannot stop them, but perhaps you can." "Us?" Liam asked incredulously. "What can we do against a team of researchers with advanced technology?" "You can speak to them as one human to another," Zephyr replied. "You can show them that we are not mere animals to be studied and dissected. You can make them understand that we are people, with lives and society and rights." "They might not listen," Ilara warned. "From what we overheard, they're not interested in diplomatic contact. They want specimens." Zephyr's wings drooped slightly. "Then we are truly lost." A moment of heavy silence fell over the gathering. Liam and Alara exchanged troubled glances, the weight of responsibility settling on their shoulders. They had stumbled into something far beyond their ordinary lives, a first contact scenario straight out of science fiction, with the fate of an entire species somehow resting in their hands. It was Noah who broke the silence. "Not lost," he said firmly. "Heartstone help, show way." The crystalline sphere in his hands had begun to pulse with a rhythmic light, casting rainbow patterns across the cavern walls. Noah held it up, his eyes, now more gold than blue, the vertical pupils fully formed, fixed on the object with absolute concentration. "Noah?" Alara called, alarmed by the intensity of his focus. "Honey, what are you doing?" But Noah didn't respond. His entire attention was on the Heartstone, which was now pulsing in sync with his breathing. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from the sphere toward the ceiling of the cavern, expanding into a projected image that all could see. A detailed map of the surrounding forest, with moving points of light representing the researchers. They were indeed closing in, their search pattern methodical and relentless. "They'll be here within hours," Liam confirmed grimly. The projection changed, showing images of the researchers' equipment, the tracking devices, the drones, the communication systems they used to coordinate their search. Then, startlingly, it showed the devices failing, screens going blank, drones falling from the sky, communications dissolving into static. "Can the Heartstone do that?" Liam asked, turning to Zephyr. "Disable their technology?" "Not directly," Zephyr replied, studying the projection with evident surprise. "But it can influence energy patterns. With the right guidance, perhaps." "I guide," Noah said, his voice strangely adult despite coming from his tiny form. "I show way, but need help." "What kind of help, sweetie?" Alara asked, kneeling beside her son. Noah pointed to Maya, then to several other Lumina gathered around the pool. "Friends help, make big energy, make shield." Zephyr conferred briefly with the other elders, their communication a rapid exchange of trills and color shifts too quick for human eyes to fully process. Finally, the leader turned back to Noah. "We will try, young one. The Heartstone has chosen you as its conduit. We will provide the energy, but you must direct it." "Wait a minute," Liam interjected, protective instincts flaring. "What exactly are you asking our 10-month-old son to do? This sounds dangerous." "There is risk," Zephyr acknowledged, "but less risk than doing nothing. The Heartstone would not have connected with him if he could not bear it." "I'm not scared," Noah insisted, looking up at his parents with determination in his golden eyes. "Help friends." Ilara and Liam shared another look, one of those silent communications that parents develop, weighing concern against necessity. Finally, Ilara nodded slowly. "We're with you, Noah," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Tell us what to do." Under Noah's unexpected direction, the Lumina began to prepare for what appeared to be a ritual of sorts. They arranged themselves in concentric circles around the central pool, with Maya and 6 other young Lumina forming the innermost ring. Zephyr guided Liam, Ilara, and Noah to a position at the very center, on the floating crystal platform. "Hold Heartstone," Noah instructed, offering the sphere to his parents. "All touch." Liam placed his hand on the sphere, Ilara did the same, and Noah covered their hands with his tiny one. The moment all 3 were in contact, the Heartstone flared with brilliant light, and the water of the pool began to glow in response. "Now, friends sing," Noah said, looking to the Lumina. "Make big energy." The Lumina began to emit a sound unlike anything Liam or Ilara had ever heard. Not quite singing, not quite speech, but a harmonious blend of tones that seemed to resonate with the very stones of the cavern. As they sang, their scales began to pulse with light in synchronized patterns, the energy visibly flowing from one being to the next, gathering intensity with each cycle. The water of the pool started to rise, defying gravity, forming a swirling column of luminescent liquid that surrounded the platform where the humans stood. Noah's eyes were now glowing as brightly as the Heartstone, and his skin had taken on a subtle iridescence, as if the Lumina's light had somehow infused his very being. "Think shield," Noah instructed his parents. "Think big shield over forest. No machines work, no find friends." Liam and Ilara closed their eyes, focusing as directed. Liam imagined a dome of energy spreading over the forest, interfering with electronic signals, scrambling sensors, providing a protective barrier for the hidden cavern and its inhabitants. Ilara's thoughts were similar, though her maternal instincts added another layer. Protection not just for the Lumina, but for her son, whose transformation both frightened and amazed her. The Heartstone grew warmer between their hands, pulsating with increasing urgency. The Lumina's song rose in volume and complexity, the patterns of light flowing faster and brighter between them. The column of water surrounding the platform began to spiral outward, carrying the combined energy toward the cavern ceiling and beyond. "It's working," Noah whispered, his voice filled with wonder and strain. "Feel it, Mama, Papa. Feel shield growing." Through the Heartstone's connection, Liam and Ilara could indeed feel it. A vast web of energy spreading outward from the cavern, rising through the earth and rock, enveloping the forest in a protective embrace. It was like nothing they had ever experienced, a sensation of being simultaneously tiny and immense, connected to every blade of grass, every tree, every creature within the shield's growing radius. In their shared vision, they could see the researchers stumbling in confusion as their equipment failed, screens flickering and dying, communication devices emitting only static. The drones plummeted from the sky, their navigation system scrambled by the energy field. The researchers gathered in a clearing, arguing amongst themselves, gesturing with frustration at their useless technology. "Shield strong," Noah murmured, his tiny face showing the strain of channeling such tremendous energy. "But need more, need seal." The Lumina's song shifted in response, taking on a deeper, more resonant quality. The patterns of light flowing between them intensified, focusing now on the uppermost ring of elders, who spread their wings fully, revealing complex geometric patterns that had been hidden before. Zephyr's voice cut through the harmonics, directing the energy flow with expert precision. "Now, young one, direct the ceiling pattern." Noah's face scrunched in concentration, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air of the cavern. The Heartstone pulsed between their 3 pairs of hands, growing almost too hot to touch. "Think forever," Noah instructed his parents. "Think shield, stay always." Liam and Ilara focused again, imagining the protective field becoming permanent, anchoring itself to the land, drawing power from the earth itself rather than the finite energy of the lumina. As they concentrated, the column of glowing water collapsed suddenly, not splashing back into the pool, but transforming into a mist of pure light that shot upward, passing through solid rock as if it were air, spreading in all directions once it reached the surface. Through their connection with the Heartstone, they could see the mist settling over the entire forest, becoming invisible to normal sight but permanently altering the energy patterns of the area. As the final particles of light found their places, a shockwave of power rolled outward from the cavern, strong enough to make the researchers in the clearing stumble and fall. And then it was done. The Lumina's song faded to a gentle hum, their scales dimming to a soft glow. The Heartstone cooled between the family's hands, still luminous but no longer burning with concentrated power. Noah slumped in exhaustion, his eyes returning to a more normal appearance, still gold-flecked but less dramatically alien. Ilara gathered him into her arms, kissing his damp forehead. "Is it over?" she asked, looking to Zephyr. "Did it work?" The elder Lumina nodded, wings drooping slightly with fatigue. "The shield is established. No technology that seeks to find us will function within its boundaries. The forest itself will protect us now, diverting those who would harm us, confusing their instruments, concealing our presence." "The researchers?" Liam asked. "They will find nothing," Zephyr assured him. "Already they prepare to leave, believing their equipment has malfunctioned, that they have followed false readings to an empty forest." Maya approached Noah, trilling softly. She reached out one delicate paw hand to touch his cheek, and the contact seemed to revive him. He smiled tiredly. "Friend safe now," he said, patting Maya's head. "All friends safe." "Thanks to you, little one," Zephyr acknowledged, bowing slightly. "The Lumina owe your family a debt we can never fully repay." Liam shook his head. "No debt. We did what anyone should do when faced with injustice. You deserve to live in peace, free from persecution." "Not all humans would see it so," Zephyr noted, with a wisdom born of bitter experience. "Your kind often fears what it does not understand, seeks to control what it fears." "Then we'll have to do better," Ilara said firmly, adjusting Noah in her arms. "Teach our children to be more open-minded, more compassionate." Noah yawned widely, the events of the day catching up with his small body. "Go home now?" he asked sleepily. "Tired?" "Yes, sweetheart," Ilara soothed. "We'll go home now." Zephyr escorted them back toward the hidden entrance, accompanied by Maya and several other Lumina. As they walked, Liam noticed that the cavern seemed different, more vibrant, more alive, as if the ritual had awakened something dormant in the very rocks. "The shield will require maintenance," Zephyr explained as they approached the exit. "A renewal of energy every cycle of seasons. If you are willing, we would ask you to return then, to help us strengthen it." "Of course," Liam agreed without hesitation. "We're neighbors now, after all." At the entrance tunnel, Maya darted ahead, trilling excitedly. She disappeared into the passage, only to return moments later with something in her paw hands, a small, perfectly formed crystal, similar to the Heartstone but clear as water. "For Noah," she said, her voice musical but the words distinct. "Remember friends." Noah accepted the crystal, his tired eyes lighting up. "Always remember," he promised. "Always friends." The crystal glowed briefly at his touch, then settled into a gentle pulsing that matched the rhythm of his heartbeat. Maya touched her forehead to his in a gesture of deep affection, then retreated to stand beside Zephyr. "You may keep the Heartstone as well," Zephyr told them. "It is bonded with your son. It will guide you back to us when the time comes, and it may help with what is to come." "What do you mean?" Alara asked, a new worry creasing her brow. Zephyr's expression was difficult to read, alien as it was, but conveyed something like gentle concern. "The connection your son has formed with our kind, with the energies we channel, it has changed him. Not in any harmful way," the elder added quickly, seeing Alara's alarm. "But he will continue to develop abilities beyond what is normal for human children. The Heartstone will help him understand and control these gifts." "Gifts," Liam echoed, uncertain whether to be concerned or amazed. "Enhanced perception, stronger connection to the living energies of your world. Perhaps other abilities we cannot predict. The blending of our essences is unprecedented." Zephyr's wings fluttered in what seemed to be embarrassment. "We did not intend for this to happen, but we cannot undo it. He'll be different," Alara realized, looking down at her sleeping son. "Special." "He was already special," Zephyr corrected gently. "That is why the Heartstone chose him. These changes merely bring his outer self into alignment with the extraordinary spirit that already existed within." They reached the hidden door, which shimmered back into existence at Zephyr's touch. Beyond, the forest waited, dappled in afternoon sunlight, peaceful and seemingly ordinary, though Liam and Alara now knew better than to trust appearances. "The researchers have gone," Zephyr confirmed, sensing their concern. "The path is clear. You may return safely to your home." "Will we see you again before the maintenance?" Liam asked, suddenly reluctant to leave this magical place and return to the mundane world. "Perhaps," Zephyr replied, with what might have been a smile. "The barriers between our kinds have thinned thanks to young Noah. Maya, especially, has grown quite fond of your son. I suspect she may visit if you would welcome her." "Of course we would," Alara said warmly, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Just days ago, the idea of an alien creature visiting their home would have terrified her. Now, it seemed as natural as having a neighborhood child stop by. They said their goodbyes with promises to return. As they stepped through the doorway back into the forest, Liam turned for one last look. Zephyr and Maya stood framed in the entrance, their scales catching the sunlight, transforming them from mysterious shadows into beings of remarkable beauty. Then the door shimmered and vanished, leaving only solid rock behind. The journey home was quiet. Noah sleeping peacefully in Alara's arms, the Heartstone and Maya's crystal tucked safely in Liam's backpack. The forest felt different around them, more alive, more aware. Birds sang greetings as they passed. Branches seemed to bend slightly to clear their path. And once, Liam could have sworn he saw the undergrowth shift to reveal a clearer trail. "It's like the forest is helping us," Alara whispered, noticing the same phenomena. "Maybe it is," Liam replied, remembering how Noah had described the forest as friend forest. They reached their cabin by late afternoon, relieved to find no sign that the researchers had returned. Inside, everything was as they had left it, the ordinary world they had known before this extraordinary day. Yet it all looked somehow different to them now, as if they were seeing it through new eyes. Noah woke as Alara laid him in his crib, blinking sleepily. His eyes had settled into a new normal, mostly blue again, but with permanent flecks of gold and pupils that were slightly more oval than round. "Friends safe?" he asked, his vocabulary still remarkably advanced for his age. "Yes, sweetheart," Ilara assured him, stroking his hair. "The friends are safe." "Good." Noah sighed, closing his eyes again. "Noah, sleep now." Ilara rejoined Liam in the living room, where he had placed both crystals on the coffee table. They sat side by side, staring at the objects that represented their new reality. "What happens now?" Ilara asked softly. "Our son is a part alien. We're neighbors with a hidden civilization of extraterrestrials, and we've somehow become their protectors. That's a lot." Liam took her hand, his touch reassuring in its familiarity. "We adjust, we learn. We protect Noah and help him understand what he's becoming. And we keep the secret, for the Lumina's sake and for his." "I'm scared, Liam," she admitted. "Not of the Lumina. They're beautiful, peaceful beings. I'm scared for Noah. What kind of life will he have being different? Will he ever be able to live normally among other humans?" "Define normal," Liam challenged gently. "Every child is unique, with their own challenges and gifts. Noah's are just more unique than most. But he'll have us to guide him and the Lumina to help him understand his abilities. And he'll have Maya, a friend who accepts him exactly as he is." The Heartstone pulsed softly, as if in agreement, casting warm light across their joined hands. Outside, the forest whispered in the evening breeze, a sound that now seemed almost like words, like promises of protection and belonging. "We wanted to give him a simpler life when we moved here," Ilara said with a rueful smile. "So much for that plan." "Maybe simple isn't what he needed," Liam suggested. "Maybe he needed exactly this, a place where the extraordinary could find him, where he could become who he was meant to be." As night fell over the cabin, Noah slept peacefully, the small crystal from Maya clutched in his tiny hand, glowing with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. In his dreams, he flew over sunlit forests with Maya by his side, their wings, for in his dreams he had wings too, catching the light and transforming it into rainbows. Below them, the forest pulsed with life and energy, every creature and plant connected in a vast web that Noah could see and feel and almost touch. In the underground cavern, the Lumina gathered in celebration, their scales creating a symphony of light that danced across the crystalline walls. They sang of new beginnings, of bridges between worlds, of the small human child who had saved them not once, but twice. First, from the mud that had trapped their youngest, and then from discovery by those who would harm them. Maya listened to the songs, her thoughts reaching out to her sleeping friend. "Sleep well, Noah friend," she sent into the night. "Tomorrow we explore together. Tomorrow and all the tomorrows after." And somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, Noah heard her and smiled. Section 6. The Bond That Transforms. 3 months passed, bringing autumn to Whispering Pines Forest. The trees blazed with color, not just the usual reds and golds of fall, but hints of blues and purples that had never been seen in these woods before. The shield effect, Zephyr had explained during one of the Lumina's now regular visits, was gradually harmonizing the forest's energies with those of the Lumina's original homeworld, creating hybrid flora that combined the best aspects of both environments. Noah's development had continued at an astonishing pace. Now, 13 months old, he was speaking in complete, complex sentences, walking with the confidence of a much older child, and displaying cognitive abilities that would have alarmed Liam and Ilara had they not understood the source. The gold flecks in his eyes had multiplied, giving his gaze a perpetual sparkle, and his pupils had settled into a distinctly oval shape. Not quite human, not quite Lumina, but a perfect blend of both. Most remarkably, he had developed an empathic sensitivity that allowed him to sense the emotions of those around him. human and animal alike. It was this gift that proved most challenging for him to manage, as he would sometimes become overwhelmed in moments of strong feeling, unable to distinguish between others' emotions and his own. Maya had become his teacher in this regard, visiting almost daily to guide him in what the Lumina called energy sorting, the practice of recognizing and categorizing the emotional imprints that surrounded all living things. With her help, Noah was learning to shield himself when necessary and to channel the emotional energy in constructive ways. Today, Maya had arrived early, tapping on Noah's window just as the sun crested the trees. Unlike her first tentative visits, she now entered the cabin with comfortable familiarity, greeting Liam and Alara with affectionate trills before seeking out her human friend. Noah was already awake, sitting in his crib and playing with the crystal she had given him. Or rather, using it to create dancing patterns of light on his bedroom walls, a skill he had learned just last week. "Maya," he exclaimed, his face lighting up at the sight of his friend. "I was waiting for you." Maya hopped onto the edge of his crib, her scales shimmering with pleasure. "Good morning, Noah friend," she replied, her English much improved through constant practice. "Ready for today's adventure?" Noah nodded eagerly. At Maya's urging, Zephyr had granted the family permission to visit parts of the underground city that had previously been restricted, allowing Noah to learn more about Lumina culture and history. "Mama packed a picnic," Noah informed her, climbing out of his crib with practiced ease. "We can eat by the singing pool." The singing pool was Noah's name for a small underground lake where the Lumina younglings gathered to practice their harmonic communications. It had quickly become one of his favorite places, though he couldn't join in their songs directly due to the limitations of his human vocal cords. Maya trilled with excitement. "Perfect day for a picnic. The crystal lilies are blooming." Liam appeared in the doorway, smiling at the pair. "I see your early morning visitor has arrived," he said, having grown accustomed to Maya's comings and goings. "Breakfast first, then adventure, okay?" "Okay, Papa," Noah agreed, taking Maya's paw hand and leading her toward the kitchen. Breakfast had become a family affair that included Maya, who had developed a particular fondness for blueberry pancakes. Alara had learned to make extras, amused by how the little Lumina savored each bite with dramatic trills of appreciation. As they ate, Liam reviewed their plans for the day. "We'll spend the morning in the underground city, have lunch at the singing pool, and be back by mid-afternoon. I've got that video call with the publisher at 4. Liam had been working on a children's book series inspired by their experiences, carefully fictionalized to protect the Lumina's secret while sharing the emotional truth of their encounter. The first book, The Boy Who Rescued a Star, had already attracted interest from a major publisher who knew nothing of the real story behind it. "Will Zephyr show us the ancient records today?" Noah asked, bouncing slightly in his booster seat. "He promised last time." "If he said he would, then I'm sure he will," Alara replied, wiping maple syrup from her son's chin. "But remember what we talked about. Be respectful and don't touch anything without permission," Noah recited dutifully. "I remember, Mama." Maya chittered with amusement. "Zephyr has prepared special viewer just for Noah, safe to touch." After breakfast, they prepared for their excursion. The path to the hidden door was now a familiar one, though Liam and Alara were careful never to create an obvious trail. The forest itself helped in this regard, subtly rearranging underbrush to conceal their passing. Another effect of the shield, which had created a semi-sentient ecosystem uniquely attuned to their presence. The Heartstone, which Liam carried in a specially designed pouch, guided them unerringly to the entrance. Over the months, they had learned that the artifact was far more than just a key or a communication device. It was a living repository of Lumina knowledge and history, gradually sharing its secrets with Noah as he became ready to receive them. The rock face shimmered and dissolved at their approach, revealing the now familiar passage beyond. As they descended into the underground realm, the air grew warmer and filled with the sweet, spicy scent that characterized Lumina gatherings. The main cavern had transformed since their first visit. What had been primarily a functional space now bloomed with beauty. Crystal formations carefully cultivated to create breathtaking sculptures, bioluminescent plants arranged in artistic patterns, and woven tapestries of some fiber-like material that shimmered with changing images like living screens. Zephyr awaited them at the central pool, which now featured a stone bridge allowing visitors to cross to the island platform at its center. The elder Lumina had grown visibly fond of the human family, treating them not just as allies but as friends worthy of the deepest trust. "Welcome, Parker family," he greeted them, wings spread in the formal gesture of respect. "And welcome, as always, to you, young Noah. You honor us with your presence." Noah, who had absorbed Lumina customs with remarkable speed, responded with a small bow and a trilling sound that approximated their traditional greeting. It wasn't perfect. Human vocal cords simply couldn't recreate certain frequencies, but the effort always delighted the Lumina. "Thank you for allowing us to visit the ancient records, Elder Zephyr," Noah said politely. "I promise to be very careful." Zephyr's scales rippled with what the family had learned to recognize as affectionate amusement. "I have no doubt, young one. Your respect for our ways has been evident from the beginning." He led them deeper into the cavern complex, through passages that twisted and descended until they reached a chamber unlike any they had seen before. Where the rest of the underground city was alive with light and movement, this room was hushed and still, its illumination provided by a single, massive crystal suspended from the ceiling. The walls were lined with what appeared to be shelves, though instead of books, they held thousands of smaller crystals, each unique in color and shape. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a depression perfectly sized to hold one of these crystal records. "This is our history," Zephyr explained, his voice appropriately subdued, "from our origins among the stars to our arrival on Earth, through our early struggles to adapt and our eventual harmony with this world. Every significant event, every discovery, every joy and sorrow of our people, all preserved here." Noah approached the shelves with reverent steps, his eyes wide with wonder. "How do you read them?" he whispered. "Normally, we would connect directly through touch and thought," Zephyr replied. "But as promised, we have prepared an alternative method for you." He gestured to another Lumina who had been waiting quietly in a corner. The newcomer approached, carrying what looked like a crown woven from crystal filaments. "This is a thought translator," Zephyr explained. "It will convert the crystal's information into images and concepts your mind can comprehend." Noah looked to his parents for permission. Liam and Alara exchanged a glance, a moment of wordless communication that had become their way of navigating these unprecedented parenting decisions. "Is it safe?" Alara asked, protective instinct never far from the surface. "Completely," Zephyr assured her. "It functions much like the Heartstone, but with a more focused purpose. It will share only what Noah is ready to receive." Liam nodded. "Then we consent if Noah wants to try it." "I do," Noah confirmed eagerly. "Please." Zephyr carefully placed the crystal crown on Noah's head, adjusting it until it sat comfortably. "Now, young one, approach the pedestal. I have selected a crystal that tells of our first days on Earth, a fitting beginning for your education." Noah walked to the pedestal where a small blue-green crystal waited. Following Zephyr's gentle instructions, he placed his hand over the crystal without touching it. The crown on his head began to glow, creating a circuit of light between Noah and the record. The effect was immediate and astonishing. Noah's eyes widened, and his free hand reached out as if trying to touch something only he could see. "Oh," he breathed. "I can see them. I can see the ship." For nearly an hour, Noah stood transfixed, occasionally murmuring descriptions of what he was witnessing. The arrival of the Lumina spacecraft, damaged and seeking refuge, their first tentative explorations of a primeval Earth, their decision to remain when they discovered their ship could never be repaired, their gradual adaptation to their new home. Liam and Alara watched with a mixture of pride and wistfulness, acutely aware that their son was experiencing something they could never fully share. Yet there was joy, too, in seeing him embrace this extraordinary opportunity, bridging two worlds in a way no human child had ever done before. When the session ended, Noah was tired but exhilarated. "They were so brave," he told his parents as they made their way to the singing pool for their picnic. "They lost everything, but they didn't give up. They learned to love their new home. Much like we're learning to love our new reality," Liam observed, ruffling Noah's hair. "Sometimes the best adventures come from unexpected changes." The singing pool was as beautiful as promised, with the crystal lilies, flowers with translucent petals that resonated with sound, in full bloom around its perimeter. Young Lumina darted about, their scales creating dazzling patterns in the clear water as they played their equivalent of tag. Maya, who had been giving Noah and his parents space during the record viewing, rejoined them eagerly. "Did you like the stories, Noah friend?" she asked, helping him spread the picnic blanket on a patch of soft moss. "They were amazing," Noah enthused. "Zephyr says next time I can learn about how your people developed crystal shaping." Ilara distributed sandwiches and fruit, including special honey-dipped berries that had become Maya's favorite earth food. As they ate, Noah and Maya chattered about what they had learned, their friendship a living example of the bridge between worlds that had formed in these past months. After lunch, Maya convinced Noah to join her and the other young Lumina in a game involving passing a glowing orb of energy from hand to hand, or, in Noah's case, catching it in the small crystal she had given him, which acted as a buffer for his still-developing abilities. Watching their son laugh and play with beings from another world, Liam and Alara reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple act of kindness, a baby pulling what he thought was a bear cub from the mud. "I was so afraid that day," Alara admitted quietly. "Afraid for him, afraid of what we'd discovered. Now I can't imagine our lives any other way." "It's strange how quickly the extraordinary can become normal," Liam agreed, taking her hand. "But I wouldn't change it, not for anything. Noah is thriving here, growing into something remarkable. Something neither human nor Lumina, but a beautiful combination of both," Alara finished. "A bridge builder." Later, as they prepared to return home, Zephyr approached them with an unusually solemn expression. "There is something we must discuss," he said, leading them to a small side chamber where they could speak privately while Noah continued playing with Maya. "Is something wrong?" Liam asked, immediately concerned. "Not wrong," Zephyr clarified, "but significant. The changes in Noah, they are progressing more rapidly than we anticipated. His mind is developing neural pathways similar to our own, allowing him to perceive energy patterns and process information in ways humans typically cannot." "Is it hurting him?" Ilara asked, her voice tight with renewed worry. "No, quite the contrary. He is adapting remarkably well, but—" Zephyr hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "As he grows, he will become more visibly different. His abilities will be impossible to hide among ordinary humans. And there may be physical changes as well, subtle but noticeable to those who look closely. The implication was clear. Eventually, Noah would need to choose between worlds, or find a way to exist in both while hiding essential parts of himself. "What are you suggesting?" Liam asked, though he suspected he already knew. "We would like to offer your family permanent residence within our community," Zephyr said. "Not now, perhaps not for years, but eventually.